Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to BookTastic. If you were with us this morning, you will have been regaled by the wonderful Steve Cole, and the incredible Axel Scheffler just joined us and gave us a wonderful drawing demonstration and shared something about his process and about his life. And I'm now an even bigger fan than I was before. We're very, very sad that we're not welcoming you back. When we did our first online event this time last year, we had no idea that we would still be doing online events 12 months down the line. And we're very, very much hoping that this time next year, we'll be welcoming you back into studios, into the theatres. But the good thing about being able to do this is that we have got people joining us from all across the country. So it does mean that we can reach more and more people and bring authors and illustrators to more and more people. And if we do go back to live events next year, we will still be live streaming. So you'll still be able to join us even if you can't get yourself down to Bedford. Now, we could not be more excited about our next guest. She exploded into the book world with an instant bestseller with Brightstorm and became an award winner. The Brightstorm realm keeps going and continues to flourish, but she's added Wildspark and Harley Hitch, and now what feels like a new world that it's exciting and visual and just begging to be turned into a blockbuster film. You've got an opportunity to ask this author about her books or her creative process. If you look across to your screen, you should see something that says live chat or live Q&A. And that's where you can type your questions and we'll be able to ask them to Vashti for you. But you're not here to listen to me. I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to hand you over to the wonderful Vashti Hardy. Thanks, Vashti. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you for inviting me again to your wonderful book festival. I love being a part of it. And yeah, it's a shame we can't be together in real life, but next year, there's always next year.
Always
so fingers crossed for that. So thank you for having me. I'm Vashti Hardy, if you've not met me virtually or otherwise before. And I love to write fantasy adventure stories because that's, it's quite nice living in planet Earth, isn't it, really? But imagine if you could hop into a sky ship or jump into a boat and battle a sea monster today, or fly on the back of a flying lion, or go to the Iron Forest with Harley Hitch. I think that would be an exciting way to spend your Saturday, as well as being here, obviously. So I love to imagine what could be, and my books contain a lot of sort of science, invention, fun, fantasy, big questions, because I like to make my readers think hard about the world and people and creatures and the environment. So my new book, Crowfall, which hopefully you might be able to see on your screen now, I've got some sort of pictures and slides to share with you, so you should be able to see a bit of me.
Vashti, sorry, can I just stop you a minute? We have just lost your streaming, so I'm just going to Paul's just going to do a little something in the background to see if we can bring you back, because
yeah, shall I escape and then share?
Perfect, we can see you now.
There we are.
Sorry about this little technical.
That's okay, don't worry.
Okay, let's see if we can.
Shall I press play on that?
People were they were hearing your lovely voice, but they were seeing my face. Once. Right, we're on. Fantastic.
Lovely. Sorry, everyone. These things happen. What's a virtual event without a little blip along the way? It's probably that sea monster messing with things. So Crowfall, my latest book, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it today, about what made me kind of want to write an ecological fable, an ecological story, and with all the science and invention, and also where I get my ideas, how I build the world as well, because I like to think that a few of you out there, not only do you love to read stories and read good adventure stories, but you might like to write one or have a go at one at least, or have a go at creating your own eco-adventure world, your own island. So at some point, if you've got a piece of paper and a pencil to hand, that would be great. I'm going to just give you a very quick way of imagining a story island and drawing it. So you can see Crowfall there. There's in the boat, there's Orin and Cody, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a second. But first, I'm going to tell you where it began for me, why I kind of love this sort of the environmental issues in some of the stories that I write. So Rebecca's World was a book that a teacher read to me at school. And in Rebecca's World, Rebecca travels to this planet. She gets magically teleported to another world. And on this world that she ends up in, there are no trees left at all. A nasty man, Mr. Glister, has chopped them all down to fire furnaces and to build these ghost shelters. And Rebecca decides to do something about it. She thinks, what's a planet without trees? And she finds a map and it shows the location of one last tree. So she makes it her mission to go find the tree, bring all the trees back, and to do something about Mr. Glister. This story hooked me. It's the book that made me want to be a reader. And I thought, oh, one day I want to create my own worlds. I want to create my own adventure stories. But it had such a strong ecological message, even for, you know, this was back in the 70s. These things have always been there, even though now, obviously, the environment and the climate is very much prevalent in all our thoughts and in the news and things. It's always kind of been something that humans have grappled with. But that's kind of where it began for me. So I wanted to write my own adventure stories. So I'd written Brightstorm and Wildspark and Hardy Hitch, and I was thinking I want to create a new world. And I had this idea in my head. The picture you can see is of a huge tree. This is a picture that I just found on Pinterest that I really liked. And in the world of Crowfall, there's a creature. Now, I want you to imagine there's like a tree-like plant organism, but it's got almost like a brain of its own. It can think, it can feel, it's got a personality, it can grow into shapes, and it helps humans. So if you wanted, say you needed a shelter, it might grow its branches into a shelter for you to live. Or if you were hungry, it might grow a branch very quickly and drop down an apple for you, quickly grow one and give it to you to eat. So it's a really kind, wonderful, huge, ancient organism. And in the world of Crowfall, they become very much part of each island. So the islands have their own Eard in it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more. Let's meet Orin and Cody first of all. So here they are in the boat. That's Orin Crowfall, our main character of the story, and Cody. Cody is, you can probably tell, a robot. She's a fixie robot. If you imagine in the island where Orin lives is called Ironhold, and on Ironhold they have lots of robots and lots of technology. And the robots, some of them are called fixies because they fix things. So if you imagine a pixie version of a robot, fixie, see what I did with the name there? We've got a fixie robot, but Cody is special. Usually all the other fixie robots, they don't have intelligence. They just fix things and they will say affirmative, negative, not much vocabulary. But Orin, because he loves to fix things in his world, he doesn't like seeing anything broken, nature, plants, he's a bit obsessed with mending things. He found Cody, she was broken and they were going to recycle her and he couldn't bear the thought of her being recycled. So he took her and he mended her and gave her a new power source, a very special power source. And when she was brought back to life, she could talk. She had a personality. She's a little bit sarcastic, and they became the best of friends. So they go on this amazing adventure together. So let's show you. I love this little animation. The illustrations are by George Ermos, who I'm so lucky he illustrated all the covers of my books with Scholastic so far. And there you're meeting the sea monster, who's quite big in the story too. There you go. So that's like by way of little bit of introduction. Actually, I'm going to read you the blurb now of the story to give you an idea of what you can expect. Yeah, of course I can. Let's escape out of there. Stop share. There we go. Hopefully I'm big again. So here's a little introduction. I'm going to read the blurb because it sort of sums it up so beautifully. The stories insisted there were worlds of adventure beyond. Orin Crowfall had lived his whole life on Ironhold, an orderly island committed to industry. But Orin learns a terrible secret. The island is dying and everyone is at risk. Can he and his robot friend Cody evade the authorities and save their home? A rip-roaring, island-hopping adventure, an unforgettable ecological fable. So that gives you a kind of a tiny flavour about what to expect from the book. So you can, as you have heard, his island he lives on is dying, and Orin is the only person that finds out this secret. But he's just a young boy. What can he possibly do? He doesn't know if he can save their island, if he can make a difference, and he finds himself in all sorts of peril on his journey to saving his island. So maybe actually it might be quite nice to read you a bit of the opening chapter if you'd like, just to let you know a bit more. In the book, I'll show you the maps on the screen in a second, but there's some lovely maps in the books that were taken from my drawings. If you've seen me talk before, you'll know I love to draw a map when I'm writing, but then Scholastic will take my maps and make it even better. So there's a few more there. Okay, let's read you the opening, and you'll see from the start that Orin is in a little bit of a precarious situation. Chapter 1. The storm appeared without warning. Morbid clouds moved over the horizon, eclipsing the distant blue as though an enormous blanket was being pulled across the sky. One midday, Orin Crowfall was gazing at the cobalt sea, then it became muddy green, and in no time at all, it was an angry brown. And the breeze had become powerful enough to ruffle even his cropped brown hair. The storm was heading towards Ironhold, and as bad luck would have it, Orin was currently clinging to the edge of the West Tip cliffs. Arms and legs, slender as scaffold poles, were pressed against the cold limestone, and one hand, strong for a 12-year-old boy, clung onto a steel buttress, the other hand shielding his eyes from the sun. Cody fluttered up from below. Do you see that? Her large robotic eyes shone out of her round face, black and serious. She was around a quarter of the size of Orin, standard size for a fixie, but different from other fixies in many ways. The orange glow of the late afternoon light reflected off her, tipping the silver of her double antenna, curved shoulders and flickering wings. You'd have to be buried underground not to see that beast, Orin said, glancing back at the storm. We should head back. Orin looked down at the broken juniper sapling growing against odds between the metal fortifications that braced the crumbling cliff. There hadn't been a natural juniper tree discovered on Ironhold in 3 years. Of course, they had some growing in the botanical gardens, but not in the wild. This tree wouldn't survive another storm. Orin had been carefully digging it out for the past 3 center days, which was delicate work due to the roots being tangled between rock and metal, but he was almost done. We have enough time to save it. Cody frowned and glanced at the thin strip of beach far below them, which was still strewn with the remains of an unfortunate West Tip box house, a victim of the last storm. The clouds are only a center day away if we're lucky. I'd rather that wasn't us. She pointed at the wreckage. Then that's a center day we have to save this tree and get back up top. You're incorrigible, Orin Crowfall. And you use big words for a fixie. He grinned, despite the chill now embedded in his stomach at the sight of the impending storm. I'll leave it there. So that's kind of the opening sort of chapter for you, that you can get used to the world of Crowfall and everything. So let's have a look. See if I can move on to the next bit. Lovely. Oh, you might have noticed then as well, there is some time units that are a little bit different in the book. Center days and miller days, you may have heard those strange words, because in the world of Ironhold, they don't measure time in hours in the way that we do. The day is divided up into tens. So they have a deciday is a tenth of our 24 hours, a center day in Earth minutes, that would be 14 minutes and 24 seconds. And a milliday would be 1 minute and 26 seconds. So if you're a bit of a maths geek and you love sort of a little bit of getting your brain working in a mathematical way, there's a lovely table in the book that you can have a go at. So let's show you a little bit more about building the world of Crowfall and the maps, and then we'll have a little go at our own map. I'm going to share my screen again with you. Here we go. There we are. Hopefully there might be a slight delay, but hopefully you can see the map of the world of Ironhold. So that little extract I just read you at the top, the island of Ironhold, that's where Orin Crowfall lives and is currently hanging off very precariously on the edge of a cliff while a great big storm comes in. Storms that have been getting worse and worse the whole time. So how do I go about building a new world for my stories? Well, first I draw a map because that makes it real in my imagination. If I get the geography right, it kind of, I think that hopefully for the readers, they'll start to feel it's real as well. And then I collect images. Pinterest is fantastic. If you've got an adult around that could show you Pinterest at some point, I really recommend it. It's a really fun place to collect images to inspire your story worlds and to create a story. These are some of the images that I use to help me think about what Ironhold might look like. So the cliffy picture, what it might look like where Orin's hanging off the edge of the cliff there, what the buildings, this very technological island might look like, what the sort of the inside might look like, the towers of the engineering, which is at the center of this world. So collecting images is important. And there's the map that I drew of Ironhold. You can see some of the buildings there. Orin lives in West Tip. To the west there, you can see the cliffs where he was hanging off there in a bit closer detail. But there's not just one island in the world of Crowfall. There are two islands, and the second island is inspired by these pictures. Quite different, you can see, from the world of Ironhold, which is very mechanical, very advanced in its technology. There's another island called Natura, and that is very different. The creatures, the houses that people live in are all formed by this. Remember the creature I told you about, the Eard, this amazing tree whose roots grow under the island and grow other trees and houses and all sorts of things. The creatures that live there are very different to on Ironhold. You get things like bog myrtles. The second picture in at the top, that's a picture I found on Pinterest. And I just love the look of this sort of creature that looks a little bit sort of soft and shy and, you know, quite bold and strong. So I thought, I wonder if I could create something. So I came up with this idea of bog myrtles who live in the bogs. And if you need a ride somewhere, you just give them a little call and they'll wake up and take you wherever you want on the island on their back. So it's quite fun to make up the world of Natura. So if you want to make up your own fantasy island, look at Pinterest, collect pictures and sort of think about what you could create. Here's the map of Natura in a bit more detail for you. You can see the big tree in the middle is the heart of their island. That's their Eard, but it extends right under the whole of the island. And this is somewhere where Orin may find himself in the story. Okay. So now let's imagine an island together. And there's some pictures here for you to help spark off your imagination. But what I want you to do, if you're bold enough now, just close your eyes for a moment and imagine you are on an island. It can be whatever island you like. It might be a tropical island with palm trees. It might be somewhere in a very warm climate. Maybe it's an icy island in the north. It could be a very forward-thinking technological island like Ironhold. Perhaps it's a volcanic island. Maybe there are floating parts to the island. Perhaps your island is on the back of a giant sea turtle. That would be quite amazing. You may or may not find something like that in Crowfall. So imagine your island in your head now. Okay. And now we're going to think of an eco quest of your island. In the world of Crowfall, Orin finds out his world is failing because nature has gone out of balance because of something, a secret that's going on in the island, which I'm going to leave for you to discover when you read Crowfall. But there's a secret, and the balance of nature is upset. The weather is all over the place. There are huge storms coming in all the time, and no one really understands why. And it's down to Orin to find out what's going on and save the island and stop these awful storms coming in. So what could be the eco quest of your island? Perhaps here are some pictures to help you. Perhaps it's weather. Perhaps there's an upset in the balance of nature and yours is being bombarded by storms like the world of Ironhold and Crowfall. Maybe there is a big deforestation problem going on your island. Maybe some nasty business person is chopping down all the trees in your world and your characters will need to save them. Perhaps there's a huge pollution problem. Perhaps there's a plastic problem and there are great tides of plastic coming into your island and people need to solve where they're coming from and how to stop it and what to do about it. Maybe there's some other pollution. Maybe there are factories and air pollution that's the problem. Perhaps there are animals that need saving on your world. Perhaps there's an extinct animal that needs the help of your characters and your story to do something about them. Maybe your whole island could be an ark, a bit like kind of Noah's Ark, but an eco ark or something. So have a little think about what the quest of your island is. And now we're going to do a little draw along together. So I'm going to escape out of here and stop sharing. There we are, stop share. Excellent. Right, I'm going to give you a very, very simple way to create your island as a starting point. So if you've got paper now, that would be great. If you don't worry, you can just watch me and bank this idea for a rainy day, if it's not raining today, or do it this afternoon. So if you want to draw an island, the way that I start all of my maps is I do this thing where I take my pen for a walk. So say I wanted to create an island like Ironhold, or another island for the world of Crowfall for Orin and Cody to land on and adventure in. Put your pen on the page and then you can watch me first or draw along, it's up to you. Then put your pen on the page, take it for a wiggly walk. You don't even have to look at the page to do this. You can kind of take your eye off if you want, but don't think too much, like just wind it in and out, all sorts of shapes, in and out. There we go, until you eventually join up where you started. Ta-da! You have an island. You've brought an island into the world. But for your map, you might be thinking, Vashti, that looks rather like a big blob of jelly, not much like an island. And you'd be right. So what we're going to do is then you go over your original line and you make it a little bit more jagged and a little bit more interesting and meandering. So follow your line again, go over the top and then wiggle and roughen it up a bit. Don't worry, you'll still be able to see your original line underneath. That doesn't really matter. You can either do a bit of rubbing out or you can just use colour to go over it. So just roughen it up. There we go. Hurrah, there you can see it's starting to look a little bit more like an island. You can think about the shape now. So where your land curves in a little bit, you might think, oh, maybe a bit of land has broken free. It's a bit like the Isle of Wight or something. And there's a few little islands that have come off the mainland that can all add a bit of shape. And then you can start to add details, like you can add a few waves or some blue to show where the water is. But one thing for you to remember is this is your world, and the world of your island, your map, your rules are all that matter. You don't have to stick to planet Earth rules. You can make up the rules for your eco adventure island. You might want to make it quite like planet Earth, and that's fine if you want to, but you might want to make up your own magical rules. Like, what if the sea in your world is pink, not blue or green? What if it's made of something else? Maybe it's made of acid or something very dangerous in your world. Who knows? It's entirely up to you. And then you can start to populate your world and start to decide on your eco quest and what you might want to include in your island. I'm going to show you a few more pictures now just to help you think about that. So that's hopefully, I'm not sure, hopefully you can see this. I'm sure someone will tell me if you can't, but here are some pictures to inspire you. Remember, You can choose any era for your eco fantasy island. Perhaps you want to travel back to the time of the dinosaurs. Maybe you, in your island fantasy, you're going to save the dinosaurs from extinction. Or perhaps it's a fantasy world that's a little bit like a fairy tale. Maybe the whole world has frozen, your island is frozen because an evil witch has upset the balance of nature or something. And you've got a character that's going to journey on the back of a polar bear to the ice castle to save her island. Maybe there's a magical whale to save. Maybe it's very sort of futuristic, and you've got all sorts of robots and things in your world, different houses that you're going to invent. Maybe your houses are on stilts or something, trying to escape the rising water. It's entirely up to you. Have fun with it and grow your island and grow your world and see what happens from it. And then when you've started to add and draw things on your island, then you can start to imagine more about the story. Are you going to make it into a chapter book? Are you maybe going to make a picture book about your world? Maybe write a poem about it. Or you could create a book with facts all about your world. Write the fact book of your eco island and what's going on there. So it's just another way into kind of creating stories and exploring eco challenges in a slightly different way than using the real world. So I'm going to, let's go out of there and go back big. Now let's stop sharing. There we go. And hopefully we've got a little bit of time for some questions now about anything you like. You can ask me about the world of Crowfall, about writing stories, tips for your own stories. Give it all to me. Oh, Rachel, I can't quite hear you there. Sorry.
Sorry. Am I
back? That's better.
Sorry about that. I've never seen, we've had 6 events so far, and I haven't seen as creative questions and as excited people as have been put up here. The questions are amazing. We can't wait to get cracking with them. I just wanted to say first that Sadie, who is 11, has said, please write more books in the Brightstorm and Dark Whispers books. They are my favourite books ever. Which I think...
all I can say, well, I can't say anything, but...
Watch this space.
Can I just say, watch this space? Yeah, just watch this space, Sadie. Trust me on this one. Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Watch this space.
And James says, how exciting. This is the session I've been looking forward to the most. So,
that's lovely. Thank you.
So Teddy would like to know if the sea monster is a robotic or a natural monster.
It's a robotic sea monster, but with a bit of a twist in its tail. So yes, it's robotic, but there's a little bit of slight intelligence going on for reasons that become clear as you progress through the story and get to the end. But yeah, there's a little bit more to the sea monster than meets the eye. But they call it in the world of Ironhold, the engineers who run Ironhold, that run that part of this world, they call it the Sentinel. So it's kind of like it's out in the ocean because they think that other islands are not to be trusted, that other islands might want to steal their wonderful technology and to steal their resources and things like that. So they're very protective over their island and have quite a closed off attitude to the existence of other islands and what could be beyond. It's kind of like they like their way, and that's that. So they have this sea monster patrolling the oceans around Ironhold, just kind of to protect, and perhaps they don't like people leaving much either. So you can see when Orin finds himself in a small boat in a big ocean, and the mechanical sea monster is there could be trouble.
Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah, so it's...
Sorry.
That's all right.
There's a follow-up that says, was the sea monster inspired by leviathans?
Not particularly, but I love the kind of the idea of leviathans, and I think any sort of mythical creature, there's so much you can do with them, so much that you can use for stories and for your story worlds. And it was nice to create a robotic creature that was a little bit different. Sometimes it's really hard to work out what you want a story creature to look like. That's where I find Pinterest very, very helpful, because you can take pictures and then you could think, oh, I'll take a little bit of that. Like, I like the spines on the back. I like the idea of that. So I'll take a little bit of this creature, a little bit of that creature. And then you start to build your own creature, sort of borrowing bits from real life. Actually, that's something you could do if you like. If you want to make up a mythical creature, look at real life creatures, because they can be really peculiar. there's things out there that you would think that can't exist in real life, but actually, like, such odd things. So do some research, watch a little bit of David Attenborough, and the sea ones are brilliant. Look at the creatures, make notes, and create your own amazing mythical creature from
I was
the
just
real
going to
world.
say that, because we had an event with Katie and Kevin Sang yesterday talking about their book Dragon Legend, and they were saying the same thing about looking at some of the creatures that exist in the sea, and that can really help to inspire when they're creating their different dragons. And so yeah,
Brilliant. Yeah, it's a good way of doing it. Yeah, just take real life and then supersize it, or a bit like if you've read Brightstorm with the Thought Wolves.
yes,
I love wolves. Like, wolves are such amazing, intelligent, brilliant creatures. But if you're writing a fantasy book, you could think, well, how can I take a wolf and do something different? So I know, wouldn't it be cool if a wolf its back was taller than me, and you could, they'd let you ride on them through a snowy forest? And wait a minute, what if they could think and communicate through their power of their thoughts? That would be fun. So I think that's why I love fantasy writing, because you can make the impossible possible, which
the
is
only
magic.
limit is your imagination.
It's really fun, and like, kids have the best imagination, so I know what the things that you'll come up with will be brilliant. So yeah, just take a creature you love and just tweak it and amend it. You love spiders, do something with spiders.
Spiders are great.
Yeah, I say spiders because I had a spider dream last night.
Oh, really? Oh, I do like spiders, actually, because when you actually look at them in close detail, you can see some fascinating things about
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah, supersized spiders,
spiders.
but nice ones. Like, spiders get a rough deal.
There are some weird spiders in Philip Reeve's book. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. It's got an airship called the Sophronia, and the spiders in that are really cool. Anyway, Violet says, I have read Crowfall and I love it.
Oh, wow, that's quick. Thank you, Violet.
I was just thinking that. I really like Professor Forge's uncovering personality. How did you make it so believable that her personality appeared one way but was actually the opposite?
Oh, brilliant. What a great, gosh, your questions are on fire today. I love you lot. So yeah, Commander Forge. Well, yeah, she's a one to watch. So she's so for those that haven't read Crowfall, she's the leader of Ironhold. She is the lead engineer. There's a core group of engineers, 10 of them, that run the island, but she's at the top of it. So with her, I think it's when you're creating a baddie, when you're creating someone that's maybe not to be trusted, I quite like creating characters that you've probably heard of that phrase, a wolf in sheep's clothing, although that gives wolves a bad deal. But the thing that actually what you see on the outside isn't always what's going on the inside with someone, because in real life there are people like that out there, aren't there? There are people that sometimes they might seem nice, but are they really? Can you really trust them? Are they saying things to get what they want, or because are they? I love the sort of the nuances in personalities like that. Eudora Bain, if you've read Brightstorm, is another one. She's a proper sugar-coated baddie. She seems so lovely on the outside, but if you've been on the Brightstorm journey, you'll know that there's a lot more going on. But also, when you're creating a baddie, there's a phrase that sort of says, in the baddies world, they are the hero of their own story. So to themselves, so Commander Forge thinks that what she's doing, which I won't say because spoilers, but what she's doing, she believes it's the right way forward for the progression of humans and the human race and science and technology. So she's driven by her beliefs. So to her, what she's doing is right and justified. Any rational human being on the outside would look at how she's thinking and say, wait a minute, no, that's not right. But to her, she really believes she is. And I think characters like that are really interesting. And you've only got to look at people in real life and kind of go, yeah, actually, it's quite good sometimes to wise up.
I was just going to say, that's a really interesting commentary on the world, actually, not just baddies, but just people in general. How what we see, our perspective is very different usually to their perspective.
Yeah. And it's really fun when if you want to create any character, whether it's a goodie, a baddie, an in-betweenie. I suppose they're very basic, aren't they? Goodie, baddie, but there's nuance in it all, of course. But if you want to create one, like, look at real life actors and actresses that you think, oh, they would be good playing my character, and it can help you imagine what they look like. So you can sort of visualize, and then that always helps me when I'm writing. I kind of choose maybe a famous actor and think, okay, that might help me picture what they're like, and it sort of gets just makes it a little bit realer for me.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading these questions and I'm absolutely blown away. They're amazing. Alice is 6 and she's enjoying drawing islands, and she said, and I love this question so much, I think I might die. Alice says, does the sea monster like staying up after bedtime?
Oh, I love that question too. Yes, you know what, Alice? It never sleeps. It does not sleep, this sea monster. It is relentless. It would just go and go and go.
I love that.
So yeah, it loves staying up at night. I think someone needs to read it a few good bedtime stories. Maybe it might calm down a bit and actually,
Good point.
Yeah, a good bedtime story would probably see it through. Oh, that's so lovely. Alice, you're coming to the age, Alice, where you might quite enjoy Harley Hitch. Harley Hitch is kind of good for kind of your age and above. It's a bit shorter than Crowfall, and it's got some really brilliant illustrations all the way through.
I was just going to say, it's just behind your head there, isn't it?
Yeah, there she is. There's Harley. She if you love a bit of imagination and invention, then Harley's your girl. She lives in this, I'll show you the map. So this is like the map of where Harley lives in Inventia. There's an iron forest where strange things grow, lots of mechanical things, cogs and all sorts. There's a rusty river where you can fish for inspiration. You can catch a robot fish, which will talk to you. You can go and talk to the stars at the Star Chatter Observatory. They've all got personalities. I love the stars, actually. Like, look, there's one of the stars there.
Amazing. I have to
say, like to put on a show.
We completed that as our bedtime story a few weeks ago, and it's beloved in our house. We love Harley Hitch.
Oh, thank you. I can tell you that I finished writing Harley Hitch 2, and that's out next January, I think. So that's good. And that's Harley Hitch and the Missing Moon is next. So yeah, the circus comes to town, but circus with a difference.
Oh, okay. Now, Grace says, if you could choose an author or illustrator to work with, who would you choose?
Oh, I would. I'm quite a fan at the moment. I love so many different authors and illustrators. I'm quite a fan of Stephen Lenton at the moment. Just he seems so lovely. I've watched a few of his things on Instagram and love his illustrations, and he just seems like a lovely person. So I think I'd really love to do something with him, or so many people. I love Michelle Paver. She's amazing. I'm really lucky. I've got a few author friends, so we kind of get to chat about stories a lot. So James Nichol is one of my good author pals.
We love James.
Oh, he's brilliant. So if you've not discovered, if you like a witch story, The Apprentice Witch is
Apprentice
amazing.
Witch, amazing.
Read that. So good, isn't it? It's just beautiful.
So good.
And Lorraine Gregory is another one of my author friends who, oh yeah, watch this space for what she's working on next. So so that we already get up to a little bit of mischief together.
Amazing.
But yeah, it's lovely. In the world of children's books, you'll find all the children's authors are we're quite a friendly bunch that all kind of we chat together, and most of us know each other.
I found that. Children's authors are great. Yeah. And it's always nice when you meet, I think because we get to chat to so many, and I've yet to find an author who isn't exactly how I would imagine them to be through having read their books. You just think that your personality comes through your writing. And
yeah, it's funny. And actually, that's a really good point. If you want to have a go at writing, if you're at home now and you're thinking, oh, I feel really fired up to write my fantasy eco story, whatever, write about what you love. Put it in your stories. If you love dinosaurs, if you're obsessed with dinosaurs, get them on your island. If you love, I don't know, Roman times, get the Romans in your do an eco Roman adventure. If you love football, if you love a computer game, if you're obsessed with Minecraft, like get it into your story world, and it will feel much more fun because it's coming through you and what you're naturally interested in, which is why I write what I do, because it's all the things that I'm naturally curious about.
Yeah. Now, this is a hard one to answer, I know, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have a favourite character you've created, or do you love them all the same? And that's from Jonathan, who's 7.
I do love them all the same, because you have to love a character to write it. A main character, you have to love them, because when you create a main story for a main character for a story, it's almost like, as the writer, you're kind of taking them by the hand and you're walking through the story with them, almost like you're a ghost, like an invisible person. And then when you finish the story, it's almost like you pass their hand to the reader, and then the reader becomes the silent kind of the secret stowaway of the story world. Because it's nice to think of it like that. So my characters, I have to create good characters, because my responsibility is, I'm like, I want you to be like best buddies with them, to be part of the crew, or part with Harley in Inventia, or with Orin in that boat, and Cody. So I want you to want to spend time with them. So I do love them all the same. I think Orin Crowfall is pretty special though, because I love that he's so caring for nature and the world around him, and he believes, like all of us, we think, what can someone like little old me do? How can I take on this big problem, or how can I have an impact? And actually learning that we've all got that power to make a change, whether big or small, that we can all do something. That's quite an important thing, part of your growth and learning. So I think Orin's quite special for that. And Cody, his best friend Fixie, she's kind of there to give him a nudge on the way and keep saying to him, like, oh, come on, Orin, are you doubting yourself again? Like, come on, you can do this. Yeah. Which we all need a Cody.
Yeah, I think we do. I've got a lovely, lovely question here from Nicola, who says, what is your favourite place that you have created through your books?
Oh, that's a great question.
Isn't it?
Oh, favourite place. Oh, so many. Okay, so many. Which to choose? Oh, I love them all. Okay, I love Natura in Ironhold is pretty cool, because it is, people live in the trees, like the houses are grown by the ear, and they live inside in these kind of pods and things. Which I think would be I'd love to live on that island. Cool. Yeah, it would just be so lovely. It would just feel very relaxing and fun, and the creatures the bog myrtle. So let's go for Natura as my favorite of the moment. Although I love creating like school type settings, but not schools. So in like in Wildspark, you get the Factorium, which is like a school cross school factory where they make these robotic animals that they bring back ghosts and put them inside, which is kind of, that's really, I think I'd love to be an apprentice there and go to this really cool robotic school.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so we've got a couple of comments. Sadie says, I think Maudie from Brightstorm is my favourite character in any book I've ever read.
Oh, brilliant. I love writing Maudie. She's, you know, I loved science when I was at school, and I went more into the kind of the arts and things, but I could have gone science, and I kind of, part of me thinks like Maudie is kind of living out my dreams in that way.
I think people don't realise how similar art and science are. They're seen as two very separate things, but I think they're very, very,
yeah. You've got to have a good imagination for both subjects.
Yeah,
you need to, and the best way to grow your imagination, reading.
Absolutely.
Stories. So whether you want to be a you know, whatever you want to be, like books are like so important to growing that part of you.
Yeah. And Jonathan says, and more Griffin family adventures, please, please, please.
Oh yeah, so the Griffin, I can tell you this, the Puffin portal is out in September, so you've not got long to wait for that. So that's the second adventure, and there is a third as well, which has been written and is I've seen the cover for, and it's beautiful. That's out next March, and that's called the Raven Riddle. So there are three, there will be three. So the Puffin portal, September, and then the Raven Riddle, I think, is March.
Oh, amazing.
So, yeah, so Grace Griffin, there's more robots in that.
Brilliant.
There's a mystery to be solved and a new friend to be made as well.
I really want to ask all of these questions, but I'm going to try and wrap up really.
Oh, it's fine, like whatever, like I'm happy if you're happy.
So, okay. James says, as a parent who has just adopted a child with a limb difference, firstly, thank you for Arthur Brightstorm.
Oh, you're welcome.
What made you give Arthur a limb difference, and how important was it to make sure it didn't limit him in any way?
Yeah, so sometimes characters just kind of fall into your imagination. And when I had the idea for writing Brightstorm, it came from, I was going to answer this quickly. It's quite a long answer, but I'll shorten it. So it came from Ernest Shackleton's advert that he placed for his expedition. I saw that advert and thought, what if two children answered that advert? What, they'd have to have a good reason. And then these children popped into my head, these twins, Arthur and Maudie. And Arthur just arrived with a limb difference. That's how he just arrived in my imagination. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll go, you know, that's, you know, obviously every child deserves to see themselves as a main character in a story. It's really important. But it was important to me that the story wasn't about that. That's just one of the many things that makes Arthur Brightstorm who he is. Like all of us, we all have many things that make us who we are, but they don't necessarily define the wholeness of who we are. They're all part of things. So to him, it's his normal. Sometimes the world in Longtown, the world that he was born into, can be, unfair in how they treat limb difference, but other places that he visits, it's not the same situation. So it's just, he's the lead character of an adventure story, but it's not what the book's about, but it's just part of who he is. So it's really lovely to write him. And
it's just it's important to not make it a feature of the story, but just make it an element that, not make it the focus of the story, but just make it something that's part of the bigger story, that's not really, that's just normalized almost. It's just
for sure.
Okay, I am going to ask the last question because there are so many here, but I like this one. I've liked them all, but I think this one's a nice one to end on. Would you ever write an adult steampunk style novel or an adult fantasy novel?
Yeah, I definitely would, for sure. I don't know what, but I would really love to. I think whatever idea you have, they tend to fit in a certain age range. So, you know, you might have an idea that suits a picture book, you might have an idea that suits middle grade or slightly younger chapter books, or it might be something that suits a more steampunky adult novel. So I've got quite a few ideas like just bouncing around in my brain, and it might be that one of them kind of suits that. So I think just time and just giving it a bit of space. But I would love to write something.
Oh, brilliant.
For the adult.
Okay.
I'm kind of thinking if the readers as they grow up, like some of my stories, if they're kind of, you know, get to teenage, 15, 16 and are ready for something else, maybe by then I might have written something that they'd be like, oh yeah, I can read this now.
Or kind of the what happens when Arthur and Maudie grow up and it becomes an adult version of a Brightstorm book, kind of as they get older. Anyway.
Yeah. I love books with, I think all the best fantasy stories, the more epic ones, have great adults as well as the children in it. So I think always having that balance of great adult figures as well as the children. And like you say, Arthur and Maudie kind of growing up is a bit irresistible. Watch this space.
Oh, exciting. Oh my goodness, Vashti, that's been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I didn't get around to any of the questions. You can always Rachel, you can always put them on Twitter and I'll answer them on Twitter.
Absolutely do that. It's just, it's been wonderful. And I'm sure you're all extremely keen now, apart from those of you who've already read it, well done, to to read Crowfall yourself. And it is available in our festival bookshop. And the link to that is in the email that was sent out to you with this registration. So I can't believe we are nearly at the end of day 1 of the weekend and day 2 of the whole festival. And we've already met so many. I mean, how can we possibly match what we've already done? And yet, next, we have Patrice Lawrence. The Patrice Lawrence, award-winning Patrice Lawrence, recently awarded an MBE by the Queen, Patrice Lawrence, coming up. And then we've still got a whole day of events tomorrow with David Litchfield. Alex Latimer is beaming in from South Africa. We've got Zainib Mian. We've got Gareth P. Jones, Raymond Antrobus, and Polly Dunbar. It's going to be amazing. But Vashti, this was amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us. I'm sure you have just so grateful as I am to Vashti for coming here today.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for everyone for popping along. It's been really lovely, and happy reading, happy writing, all of you. And thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Vashti. Bye, everyone. Hope to see you soon.